Video 36 of the master course Quantum Chemistry of Molecular Electromagnetic Properties. The topic of this lecture is quantum mechanical expressions for the magnetizability. In the previous lecture, we had defined the magnetizability or components of the magnetizability tensor as second derivatives of the energy in the presence of an external magnetic field and derivatives with respect to two components of the external magnetic field and then evaluated at zero magnetic field strength. Now, one way to get an expression for these perturbed energies is, of course, use our perturbation expressions from chapter 3. And since we are taking a second derivative, and evaluate it later at zero field strength, we only need to look at the second order correction to this energy because that's the only one which is quadratically dependent on the field. So therefore we have to take, in order to get a component of the magnetizability, we have to take a second derivative of this second order energy correction. And the expression which we had obtained for the second order energy correction in the case of magnetic perturbation, meaning in the case of a Hamiltonian, which not only included a term linear in the vector potential and therefore linear in magnetic fields, but also a term which depends on the square of the vector potential and therefore quadratically dependent on the external magnetic field. So here's this full expression for the second order energy correction with both the first order perturbation Hamiltonian and the second order perturbation Hamiltonian. Remember the expression for the second order with the second order Hamiltonian is just an expectation value, whereas with the first order Hamiltonian we have this sum over all the excited states. Now we have to take derivatives of both these terms with respect to two components of the magnetic field, which of course means that we need to know how these first order Hamiltonians and this second order Hamiltonian looks like. The first order Hamiltonian we have already derived in the previous chapter, in the previous lecture, where we looked at quantum mechanical expression for the permanent magnetic moments of a molecule. So what we are missing is the second order Hamiltonian, and that comes from the A squared, the term which has the vector potential squared. And we also already have looked at what the vector potential is for static and homogeneous external magnetic induction. And we have to then square this term and write it in a form so that we can isolate the components of the magnetic field from all the rest of the terms which depend on positions or maybe even other properties of the electrons. And that is done in here. You do that in the exercise, but it's also done here. So we here have the two components of the external magnetic field and the part of the operator, which we call the perturbation operator, which only depends on then properties of the electrons, is written up here. You see it's the distance from the gauge origin to the position of the electron squared, or components of these. So that's our second order perturbation operator, which we have to insert in here, and the first operator from the previous chapter we have to insert there, and then we have to take derivatives first with respect to beta component of the external magnetic induction and then of the alpha component. First order Hamiltonian here, I only took the orbital part and not the spin. Doing that leads to this expression here, where first we have the ground state expectation value here with these second order perturbation operators, and we have the sum of states expression where we have here again the orbital magnetic dipole moment operators and two different components. Now you might ask yourself why from the fin part, so why is there no terms with the spin operators? The reason for that is, if you look, we have here that would lead to a transition moment with this way, where we would have a component of the total electron spin operator and these two wave functions. But the spin operator might or will change the spin part of this excited state wave function. However, it will not change the spatial part. And there's no operator here which acts on the spatial part, which means we still have the spatial part as originally, and this is an excited state, this is ground state, and they are orthogonal, which means that this transition moment is 0. In the states expression, which we had here, which is sort of consistent with perturbation theory. In this chapter, we also showed that one can define the magnetizability as the first derivative of the magnetic moment of the molecule in the presence of an external magnetic induction with respect to a component of the magnetic induction. But this magnetic dipole moment is now the magnetic dipole moment in the presence of the induction, external magnetic induction, so it's not the permanent magnetic dipole moment. We can calculate it as an expectation value of the field-dependent wave function and the magnetic dipole moment operator, but now we need the magnetic dipole moment operator in the presence of a magnetic field. And in contrast to the electric case, this magnetic dipole moment in the presence of the magnetic field is different from the magnetic dipole moment when there is no field. And that is again due to the fact that we have a term in the Hamiltonian in the presence of field, which is quadratic in the magnetic moments because we have this a squared, the term which is the square of the vector potential. So if we look now therefore at the derivative of the Hamiltonian with respect to one component of the external magnetic field and do not evaluate this derivative at zero field strength, then we get the normal orbital magnetic dipole moment operator, and we get these second order perturbation operators times a component, still one component of the magnetic field, magnetic induction. So we can insert now this operator here, that here in our expectation value, and then take the derivative, the second derivative, sort of derivative with a component of the external magnetic field, and evaluate that evaluate afterwards the expression for zero field strength. So we have three terms, three parts of that integral, which depend on the field, the wave functions, and our operator. So we'll get also three terms afterwards. We have one where we take the derivative of the wave function in the bra, one in the cat, and then the derivative of the operator. And of course, the first part of our field-dependent operator is independent. That's just the orbital magnetic dipole moment operator. But the second part is dependent on the field. If we take then the derivative, we are left with these two operators as we have here. Now we have several possibilities to deal with these derivatives of the field-dependent wave function with respect to components of the field. Later on in the last part of the book, we will look at methods how to get derivatives of wave functions. But here we will use two approaches now. In the first approach, we could use our perturbation theory expressions for field-dependent wave functions, where here, because we evaluate the derivative at zero field strength, here we will just have to look at the first order correction to the wave function. Inserting those expressions for the first order correction to the wave function will lead us back to the sum. The final approach is using response theory. Response theory, because response theory tells us, in response theory we have an expansion of such a field-dependent expectation value. In the first term is the field-independent one, which of course disappears if we take the derivative with field strength, and the next one is a term which includes the linear response function of the two operators, the one of which expectation value we calculate, and the one which represents the interaction with the perturbation. So doing that, we then get here we get again the expectation value back because we still have the field-dependent magnetic dipole moment operator here, but then we also get just a linear response function with two orbital magnetic dipole moment operators. So independent of which expression or which way we choose, we always end up with two contributions to magnetizability. And they have two different names. One is called the diamagnetic contribution and one is called the paramagnetic contribution. The diamagnetic contribution is the one which is the expectation value of with the unperturbed wave function of those second order perturbation operators. This contribution, the diamagnetic contribution, is negative. The second contribution, which is can be either written as the sum over states expression or as the linear response function, is positive. It's called the paramagnetic contribution. Now, for most molecules, the diamagnetic contribution is numerically larger than the paramagnetic contribution, which means that the total magnetizability is negative. This means that the induced magnetic dipole moment will oppose the external magnetic field, and if one would bring such a molecule in an inhomogeneous magnetic field, it would be pushed out of the magnetic field, a behavior which one calls diamagnetism. And therefore, the diamagnetic contribution has its name, the diamagnetic contribution. Now, a few closed-shell molecules have the opposite situation where this paramagnetic contribution to the magnetizability is larger than the diamagnetic. For these molecules, the induced magnetic dipole moment will then augment the external magnetic field, and such a molecule would be in an inhomogeneous external magnetic field, be pulled into a region with where the external magnetic field is larger. Normally, paramagnetism comes from the fact that there's a permanent magnetic moment, either orbital magnetic moment or spin magnetic moment. So there are permanent magnetic moments, and in the presence of an external magnetic field, those magnetic moments are then aligned parallel to the external magnetic field. And how much or how many of those molecules or these moments are aligned depends on the temperature with usual Boltzmann distribution. So normal paramagnetism is temperature dependent, how large it is. But the one which we have here, which comes from not from the permanent moments, but which comes from the induced magnetic moment, is temperature independent because it's not a question of aligning the vectors of the magnetic moments. It's the linear response of the system to the external magnetic field, and that is temperature independent. Another point one should discuss is that both the contribution, the diamagnetic contribution to the magnetizability and the paramagnetic contribution depend on this gauge origin. Actually, they are both quadratically dependent on the gauge origin, which is discussed in later parts of the book. The sum of the two terms, however, can be shown to be independent of this gauge origin. That, of course, means, and the choice of the gauge origin, of course, is free. One can choose whatever one wants. But that also means that essentially the diamagnetic and the paramagnetic contribution as separate contributions are not well defined because the value of them depends on where you have put this arbitrary gauge origin. The sum, however, is independent as it has to be.